Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to deconstruct the anatomy of a sporting comeback. I mean, we've all seen them, right? Those absolutely epic moments where an athlete just rises from the ashes. But we're doing something a bit different today. We're moving past just the visual hype that gets our blood pumping. Instead, we're diving directly into the hard biological science of how a comeback actually works. And then, we're going to anchor it all in one of the greatest real-world victories in modern history. This Saturday, McGregor versus Diaz. In a match for the history books. The sport will never be the same. You know that exact voice, right? That deep, gravelly, totally over-the-top MMA promo style. It just immediately hooks you. It drops you right into the visceral, super high-stakes world of sports hype. And it does its job perfectly. It makes you feel the sheer weight and gravity of the moment before the athletes even step foot in the arena. It is literally designed to make your heart race. But think about it. How exactly do they build that massive dramatic anticipation visually? Well, according to filmmakers who actually discuss their craft, constructing this gritty, intense environment is a very deliberate step-by-step process. Step 1, you need a small, really confined space set against a complete black void. Then, step 2, you hit the athlete with hard, 45-degree backlights on both sides. This is to give shape and shadow to every single muscle. And finally, step 3, you wet down the mat. Just like a slick, wet street in a classic neo-noir film, it adds this amazing texture and grit. This whole cinematic setup, it isn't just about looking cool. It's actually designed to visually dramatize the athlete's completely isolated, intense psychological state right before they step into the spotlight. Okay, let's step away from the cameras for a second here. Because that cinematic black void, it actually perfectly mirrors a very real, very unglamorous psychological reality for these athletes. When the lights go down and the cameras are completely off, the true black void is the grueling isolation of injury. It's the silent, crushing weight of stress. It is athlete burnout. And I want to be super clear here. This isn't just some dramatic metaphor we use to tell a good story. It is a very real, measurable, physical crisis that literally derails entire careers. To really figure this out, we're pulling back the curtain on some incredibly rigorous science. A comprehensive meta-analysis was recently published in the Journal of Men's Health, and it evaluated a massive pool of 8,947 professional and semi-professional male athletes. Guys, that is a ton of data. We're talking about deep data spanning team sports like soccer and rugby, all the way to individual combat and endurance sports. Researchers basically wanted to figure out exactly how the mind impacts the body's ability to stay healthy, to endure immense pressure, and to actually recover from physical trauma. And what they found is absolutely fascinating. Basically, we're looking at a huge clash between two massive opposing forces in an athlete's career. On one side, we have burnout. Now, this is characterized by severe emotional exhaustion, overwhelming stress, and intense physical vulnerability. On the exact opposite side, we have psychological resilience. This is the dynamic capacity for adaptation, restoring your equilibrium, and actual biological protection. It is essentially the ultimate battle inside the human body, a battle between a destructive cumulative load and a protective dynamic capacity. And the stakes of that internal battle, they are incredibly high. The data shows that athletes with high burnout profiles face 1.75 times higher odds of suffering an injury. Honestly, let that sink in for a moment. That is nearly double the risk of getting physically hurt just from being burned out. Why does this happen? Well, it's because their bodies and minds are so emotionally exhausted that their psychophysiological systems, those vital mind-body connections that are actually meant to protect them, they get completely dysregulated. Their internal alarms are essentially malfunctioning. So, when we break down exactly what is driving that huge spike in injury incidents, one factor absolutely towers above the rest, and that's emotional exhaustion, which accounts for a massive 40% of the risk. The research literally proves that emotional exhaustion is the absolute strongest subdimension linked to getting hurt on the field. Sustained competitive pressure actually turns the mind against the body's own safety. Think about it for a second. When an athlete is mentally detached and just totally drained, their decision-making slows down by fractions of a second. Their motor control drops, their form gets sloppy, and ultimately, a perfectly healthy body just breaks down. But here is where the science gets really cool and offers a tangible solution. Resilience acts as an active buffer. And I really want to be clear about this. Resilience is not just some outdated cliche about, toughing it out or rubbing dirt on it. No way. The Journal of Men's Health data shows that resilience is a measurable biological and psychological buffer that actively weakens the pathway between stress and physical injury. It actually helps regulate the nervous system in real time so that mental stress doesn't just automatically equal a torn ligament or a pulled hamstring.
Okay, so what's the actual tangible payoff of leveraging all this science? 5.3. Highly resilient athletes save an average of 5.3 days in return to play recovery time compared to their low resilience peers. That's nearly a full week. And in the high stakes world of professional sports, losing or gaining 5.5 days, that is massive. It can literally be the difference between maintaining your momentum and getting back into the championship final or sitting in a hospital bed watching someone else take your trophy. Resilience doesn't just make you feel better emotionally, it actively, biologically accelerates healing.
And all of this hard data brilliantly tees up our final chapter today. We've looked at the cinematic hype, right? We've broken down the deep biological data. But now we need to look at the legend who actually lived every single metric of this science. I am talking about the ultimate real-world proof point, Tiger Woods. Let's walk through this incredible trajectory, because it is just staggering. Back in 1997, Tiger was the youngest Masters winner ever at age 21. He dominated the field by an astounding 12 strokes. The guy was invincible. But fast forward 20 years to 2017, and the invincible man is gone. He undergoes his fourth back surgery, a really severe spinal fusion. This right here was his ultimate black void moment. By his own admission, during this incredibly dark period, he couldn't even walk. He couldn't sit at a dinner table or get down on the floor to play with his young kids. His career was effectively declared over by the medical world and the media alike. But then, against literally all logical and physical odds, we reach 2019, where he somehow secures his fifth Masters victory at the age of 43. The sheer magnitude of this resilience is mind-boggling. 15 major titles, 683 total weeks at world number one. But, perhaps his absolute greatest statistic isn't even printed on a scorecard. It's the simple fact that he survived extreme physical impairment, absolutely devastating surgeries, and overwhelming burnout. He completely rebuilt his swing and his broken body to win the Masters at 43 years old. Walking up that 18th hole with his kids and his mother watching, he proved that a fractured body can absolutely be carried across the finish line by an unbreakable mind. Stepping into the light, you see, Tiger's journey perfectly embodies everything we've unpacked today. It completely matches the cinematic, dramatic hype of a true sporting comeback, for sure. But underneath all of that hype, it is entirely underpinned by the rigorous, hard data of psychological recovery. He faced the devastating emotional exhaustion and the massive physical risk of the black void, and he used resilience as an active buffer to not only heal his spine, but to return to the absolute pinnacle of his sport. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to think about this dynamic in your own life. What is your black void? What's the stress, the pressure, or the exhaustion that's kind of pulling you into the dark right now? And more importantly, knowing that psychological resilience isn't just some vague positive attitude, but an active, measurable muscle that you can actually train, how will you build the resilience to step back into the light? Think about it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and keep building that buffer.